Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Embodied Divinity. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Let's start by taking a big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And really just settle into this moment right here, right now. We've been talking a lot lately about the ache and the rebirth and all of those things when you kind of get burnt out or tired or lose yourself or have a dark night of the soul or whatever it might be, whatever that looks like for you. We're going to kind of continue in that path this week, only we're going to sink deeper into what it looks like as you come out of that disintegration. There's this moment when you realize that you're not as dead inside as you thought. That maybe, just maybe, something in you still wants to live. Not just survive, but live. It's subtle. It's not this grand awakening, not a cue in the movie soundtrack moment. It's quieter than that. This time around for me, it was just a couple mornings ago. I was on my back deck, my hair in its natural post-dream sculpture robe hanging off one shoulder, tea in my hand. And the light was different that day. Not blinding or dramatic, it was softer, but golden in a way that looked intentional. And I remember thinking that it was as if the morning had been handcrafted, like someone spent all night mixing the perfect shade just for me. And then I saw a spider web between the railing and one of my plants. I've seen spider webs before, but this one caught that golden light and it shimmered like it had been dusted in stars. And something subtle in me shifted. It wasn't this fire, it wasn't a surge, but it was warm. The kind of warmth that says, hey, I'm still here. And I smiled without trying, and that smile, that was my ember. And it wasn't the only time this has happened recently. There was also the day last week when I put on music while I made breakfast, and normally lately I've been making food in silence. But that morning a song came on that I hadn't heard in years, and before I even knew it, I was swaying at the stove and laughing with myself. And it was small, but it was real. And I share both moments because I want you to know that your ember might not announce itself with trumpets. It might arrive quietly, and you'll only notice it if you're paying attention. Think about the last time something small made you feel alive, even for a second. Maybe it was a smell, a sound, a memory. Pause if you need to right here. Close your eyes and let yourself remember the warmth of that moment. We talk about the ashes. We talk about the phoenix rising again. But this stage, the awkward, tender in between, where you're still brushing soot from your skin, but your pulse has started to quicken again. This is a holy place. And for me, it feels like this is my 20,000th death and rebirth since I've been in this body. And I've come to think of it in 3 sub-stages. The first is hesitation, where you start to notice a spark, but you doubt if it's real. You've been in the darkness or the stagnation or the void, whatever you call it, for so long that when that little ember flicks on, you're like, wait, was that a glitch? And then the next stage is curiosity, where you start to lean toward it just a little bit, wondering if it will stay. And it's really important, I've noticed here, to not cling, to not try to get it to stay, but just be curious about it. And then the third substage is cautious movement, where you start letting it shape your actions again. For me, it's kind of awkward in this stage, especially this time around, because my last void lasted so long and there was so little life force energy in me that it took a long time to even have the energy to start following these little surges. I would get this really beautiful idea, but the moment I would even go to write it down or open my laptop, my whole nervous system would flood with no, we're not ready for that yet. This was just a little spark. And so I got to breathe and I got to let that just continue to simmer. The in between feels exciting because you can sense possibility, but it's also scary because you know what full flight costs. You've lived it. And there's a part that makes people rush through this stage. We've been taught to measure worth by speed, to prove we're better by showing progress. But the ember stage isn't about proving anything. It's about remembering how to be with yourself again. And the thing about this stage is if you've really gone through a rebirth, then it's got to be just that, a rebirth. The old you is no longer here. And so neither is the way you used to do everything. For me, I have, over the last 3 years, been letting go of the hustle mentality, the achievement means something, means my worth mentality, the production means worth mentality. And so this time around, even though I was already embodying this kind of slow, luscious lifestyle, after this last kind of death, void, dark night, now my body's even more like, okay, so what lights you up? Period. Not what lights you up and can you figure out how to make something, not what lights you up and can you monetize it, just what lights you up, period. And can you trust that as you follow that, the wealth and the structure and the love and the health and the abundance will continue to flow. And so I'm relearning all of these things on a new level. I'm not trying to go back to the old ways. And I think we catch ourselves a lot there because we suddenly start to feel better. We suddenly have all of this life force energy again, and we try to put it back in the old system, and our nervous system kind of freaks out and is like, wait, why did we go through all that if we're going to be exactly the same? I think a lot about a client who once told me that she hated this stage because she couldn't define herself in it. She wasn't broken anymore, but she didn't feel whole yet either. And I said to her, maybe this is where you get to meet the parts of you that don't need a label. The in-between isn't where you become, it's where you remember. And so I'm going to ask you this and just breathe into this question for a moment. Where in your life are you between the ashes and the flight? Let it come to mind without judgment. I want to share with you 3 ways that I've developed over the years for really nurturing this ember. And I want you to think of it of stoking a fire, that flame where you've just got the cinder and charcoal or maybe that wood that's been burning and you're just trying to keep it alive. The very first thing is to notice. Most of us dismiss the first flickers. We're trained to need proof before we believe in anything, especially ourselves. And so noticing is the first sacred act. It's saying, I see you, to the tiniest sign of life. I almost missed one of my embers a month ago. I was scrolling mindlessly and a photo of the ocean popped up. And normally I'd keep scrolling, but I stopped and I realized my body had leaned toward it like it wanted to be there. That leaning, that was the ember. When you notice, you don't demand, you don't ask, okay, but what will this become? You just acknowledge it. And it's really cool because I leaned into that photo and I stopped and I knew my body needed water. And so not only did that week I end up going on a lot of hikes that were near rivers and creeks, but I also booked a flight to Charleston, which I'm going in just a couple weeks, to just be by the ocean for a few days because I knew that was something that gave me life force energy. So this week I want you to keep a small ember list. Every time something stirs you, write it down. No pressure, just acknowledge it. So we notice and then we protect. When the ember is small, it can't handle much wind. And the wind can be other people's opinions, your own overthinking, sharing too soon with the wrong audience. I've done it. I've told someone about an idea when it was still forming, and their reaction, even well-meaning, felt like someone pouring water on my spark. And so protecting means you choose who, if anyone, gets to witness the earliest stage. And for the most part, honestly, this is the part of the ember. The ember stage is really something we almost always get to keep to ourselves until it has more gusto. Last year I had an idea I didn't tell anyone about for weeks, and in that quiet, it grew strong enough to survive outside my mind. And by the time I shared it, no one's reaction could take it from me. And it's such a valuable way to continue to keep that flame, that ember alive within you. So we're noticing and we're protecting, and then thirdly, we're feeding. An ember needs oxygen, but too much too soon can smother it. This isn't about pushing yourself into a blaze. It's about steady nourishment. For me right now, feeding my ember looks like slow mornings with music, lighting a candle when I write, saying yes to very small invitations that make my chest expand. For you, it might be making a meal just because it's beautiful, or taking a walk without your phone, or rearranging a corner of your home to feel more like you. Small, repeatable, loving actions. Let's take a deep breath here. Place your hand over your heart. Close your eyes if you can. And find your ember. Notice where in your body it lives. Is it in your chest? Your belly? Somewhere unexpected? Ask it what it needs. Listen without rushing. And when you're ready, write it down. One way you'll notice it this week. One way you'll protect it. One way you'll feed it. Sweet one, this week may you honor the in-between. May you feel the warmth that proves you are not gone. May you notice the beauty before it becomes a blaze. May you protect what is still tender and trust it to grow in its own time. And may you feed your ember with enough love, enough breath, that when it's ready to rise, it will. And you'll know you never lost the fire at all. This ache, this ember, this quiet dissolution of everything you know can be something so sacred and holy. And I know how hard it can be to not let your mind run away with stories. But if you can trust that this ember is slowly coming back to life, and move slowly with it, intentionally with it, be present with it in yourself, then it will grow into the most gorgeous and sustainable flame. But we must stay grounded and rooted. We must stay nurturing and soft. And it's through there that our fierceness rises and we find our wings again. I've created a really beautiful guided meditation for you all. It'll come out on Wednesday. It's going to help you really sink into this, to really look at this ember and help stoke it back to life. And as always, all week on my Substack, there's going to be articles and notes of inspiration that is going to guide you deeper into this journey the way I wish I had guidance, the words I wish I would have had, the words I still need, and they'll be there for you for the taking as we walk this journey together. I want to also remind you that the Inner Child Oracle cards are a really beautiful way to nurture that inner part of you and breathe deep and plan on miracles. My channeled book of inspirational messages also helps you remember the truth of the miracles that surround us in every moment. And all the resources I have are available on my Substack profile or the link below wherever you're watching this. But it's an honor to walk with you. It's an honor to be on this journey with you. And it is my hope that as I continue to share my experience rawly and real and provide the guidance that I've learned over decades of sitting with this ache and being reborn again, that you can breathe a little deeper and feel a little less alone and a little more grace as you walk beside me. Thank you again for being here. I love you so much. Breathe deep and plan on miracles. Talk soon.